Well, one of the questions that always comes up, because we are in an economic society, is how do we pay for products, services that we want to utilize? The people at BitPay suggest that you should accept Bitcoin. Well, most of us have heard of Bitcoin, but the question is, what exactly is Bitcoin? So I thought it would be helpful for me to bring in via video an expert to provide you with an explanation, detailed technical explanation of Bitcoin.
I've heard that Bitcoins are mined by computers using long strings of numbers. Bitcoin is different from paper money and credit cards and debit cards because there are no fees charged for Bitcoins when you want to buy something. And unlike paper money, it doesn't cost you your time and you don't have to be present. It's anonymous, which means it's easier for bad people to buy drugs and guns and be untraced. Also, you don't have to be a certain age to use Bitcoin, so I think kids could use Bitcoin, especially if they're trying to buy something that's only made in Japan, on the other side of the world, or in Alaska or some other far-off place.
How far until we're all using Bitcoins and digital currency?
Probably a little before all 21 million Bitcoins are mined.
Okay.
And when a few more digital currencies come out. But also companies are going to need to accept them before we all use them.
Well, for those of you that would like a little bit more technical detail, Bitcoin, the real secret behind Bitcoin is the underlying blockchain. And for those of you that are not familiar with it, at a very high level, every time Bitcoins are created through solving cryptographic hashing algorithms, a block is added to the blockchain. But importantly, one of the things that happens is that the header of the previous block is incorporated into the hash of the next block. So all the blocks tie together in an unbroken sequence. And here you can get sort of a visual representation of what the digital blockchain actually looks like. Currently, there are about 25 to 30,000 Bitcoin transactions per day taking place around the world. That number is increasing very rapidly. The blockchain itself at the moment is a file that is approximately 17 gigabytes in size. That's expected to continue to grow, but at the same time we're seeing storage costs are collapsing so rapidly, as is the cost of bandwidth and computing power, that does not appear that it's going to be a problem. And as you'll see in a few minutes, you can do much more with the blockchain than simply exchange digital currency such as Bitcoin. But why accept Bitcoin? Again, you might ask the CEO of Target why they might accept Bitcoin. The idea is lower risk, lower costs, allows you to sell globally. Now don't misunderstand me. I have no belief whatsoever that Bitcoin is going to replace all of our current currencies and payment systems. What I do believe is that it is going to become another widely used alternative. It's not a matter of either or, it's both and. What BitPay does is they act as a merchant's agents to receive and settle payments, so that if a customer wants to pay in Bitcoin and a merchant wants to be able to be paid by a customer who prefers to use Bitcoin but wants to receive their funds in dollars, they can do so. And the way it works is that the Bitcoin comes out of the customer's wallet, a digital wallet that's either stored on their computer or in the cloud, is then moved through the Bitcoin network into BitPay's own wallet, who then does a foreign exchange transaction to convert that Bitcoin into the appropriate fiat currency. US dollars in this case, although it could just as easily be euros, pound sterling, yen, what have you. Deposits that currency into the BitPay bank, which transfers the funds in that currency to the merchant's bank. It reduces risk by providing a guaranteed exchange rate, daily bank settlement to 33 countries, provides accounting interfaces, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle reporting. One of the unique approaches they've taken is they've eliminated the cost of transaction fees. There's a flat monthly fee that is associated with the number of transactions you process, but large value transactions don't pay any more of a fee than small value transactions. This is one of the things a lot of merchants have been unhappy about with many of the current debit and credit card processing fees that they have to pay. It's apparently working. I don't have the latest figures, but up through the end of last year, you can see how rapid the growth in BitPay processing is, to the point where they were processing by the end of December approximately 60,000 BitPay Bitcoin transactions per month. So that represents at that point in time something close to 10% of all of the Bitcoin transactions taking place. BitPay allowing you to accept Bitcoin in your business. But it also raises the question, if you can have a totally secure, completely anonymous, but thoroughly verifiable exchange of currency value, why can't you use the same mechanism to exchange other digital assets, stocks and bonds, your car title, digital artwork, or even to enforce digitally defined contracts of various types? Well, there's a number of efforts underway, one by a company called Ethereum, another one by a company called Colored Coin.
Bitcoin is a fantastic invention. Now you can send money directly to anyone, and you don't need a bank or credit card company for it. Wouldn't it be great to trade anything as easily as you can send a Bitcoin from A to B? Today, if you want to trade assets like shares, bonds, or commodities, you're restricted to a small number of heavily regulated exchanges. This makes trading difficult and expensive. Colored Coins makes trading as user-friendly and efficient as a Bitcoin payment. By coloring a Bitcoin, you turn it into a token that represents anything you want to trade: company stocks, gold bars, or even a house or a car. Just like the HTTP protocol turned the internet into the user-friendly, colorful environment we know today, the Colored Coin protocol adds a new layer to Bitcoin that makes it much more useful. Now, instead of just sending cash through the Bitcoin network, you can use it to trade anything you want. You can even issue your own bonds or stocks. Colored Coins makes the financial world accessible to everyone.
So let me give you an example. Digital artwork, whether it's a digital painting like this one, whether it is a recorded musical performance. One of the challenges we've had for years is that as soon as it's in digital form, it's difficult to keep people from making equally high quality digital copies of it and giving it away free to everybody or reselling it themselves. If instead the code for that digital artwork, that painting, that musical performance or whatever, was encoded as part of a Bitcoin, which might only have a nominal value of a fraction of a cent, but also have rules associated with it that says that cannot be moved unless it is bought and paid for. And if there's only one piece of that artwork and somebody buys it, the other person no longer has accessibility to that piece of artwork. Or perhaps you're visiting somebody's home and you see a beautiful piece of digital artwork. Where did you get that? Oh, here's the link that you can use to buy it. And the link goes through that person back to the original artist, so you can purchase another copy from the original artist, who may choose to pay a commission to the person at whose home or office you saw the piece of artwork that you liked. All kinds of new business models can begin to emerge in this kind of environment. I told you that every wave of business technology has three things in common with the others. There's a fourth. And the fourth is that just at the point when everyone thinks that this latest wave of business technology is the solution to all of our problems, is when they're least likely to recognize that this latest wave of business technology is not the final wave of business technology. We are at the very brink of the fifth wave of business technology, and that is intelligent systems. And we're very fortunate to have a company here in Atlanta on the leading edge of intelligent systems technologies, a company by the name of Velocity. One of the things that they have done is that they have developed, as an example of intelligent systems, the Intelligent Command and Control System for the Boeing X-45 Unmanned Combat Air Vehicle. The X-45 is an autonomous jet fighter and attack aircraft. It understands its own mission objectives, can plot a route, avoid enemy fire, correctly identify its designated target, execute its mission, and return to base without any human intervention whatsoever. And while human monitors, human pilots, commanders that oversee it can always take control of it if necessary, if there's a communications breakdown, it's capable of continuing to operate with the goals and objectives based on the data that it has available. When two or more of them fly together, they can exchange detailed information about their respective plans and goals, their current status and capabilities, and negotiate between themselves as to which aircraft is going to undertake which activity in order to maximize the likelihood of success of the mission as a whole. We're talking about a very deep level of cognitive behavior built into this technology. And this kind of cognitive enabling technology is beginning to enter the business marketplace.
A heck of a good op. Congratulations.
So you might say, how do they do that? Well, much of it is through what's sometimes called the OODA loop, O-O-D-A. Observe, orient, decide, and act. What that basically means is that signals and data are collected from the real world and passed into a situation assessment capability, which makes a determination about whether there is something in the real world that needs to be brought to the attention of an authorized person and whether anything that's been identified needs to update the plans. People can control the system by also providing instructions into it that update the plans, and once plans have been updated, those are passed into the part of the system responsible for executing the plans through actions that are taken. This concept applies just as well in the commercial market, healthcare, any other industry, as it does in the military. Very importantly, it also tells situation assessment what to look for in the way of anticipated changes as a result of the actions that have been taken. So it's a recursive process. In the case of the Boeing X-45 unmanned combat air vehicle, it gobbles 25 gigabytes of data per second and goes through this entire analytical process 30 times a second. A variety of AI techniques are used by Velocity. That's one of the real strengths, is they don't rely on a sole particular AI technique. They combine expert and rule systems, neural networks, machine learning, associative memory. But kind of the high point is pulling those together in what's referred to as intelligent agents or intelligent associates. An intelligent agent is an intelligent system that can function on its own. An intelligent associate is an intelligent agent that functions with a human in the loop of the decision-making process. Basically what happens is that as business infrastructure generates information, or information is extracted from the outside world, social media, what have you, big data processors are brought to bear as needed to handle that information. Natural language processing can translate unstructured data into structured information. Tools like associative memories can do pattern recognition, all of which feeds into the intelligent decision systems, leveraging also machine learning so that as it makes decisions and acts on those decisions, it continue to get smarter and feed the data back into the business infrastructure to execute that. Now, we're all used to the idea of the 80-20 rule. The 20% of the best performers in most organizations create 80% of the results. That's the case whether it's sales, whether it's customer service, whether it's production. One of the things that intelligent associate technology can do is it can move the curve to the right by sharing expert knowledge and making that available to the people who are not yet experts on their own, who don't have those 15 or 20 or 30 years of experience to call on in solving problems. And by providing data-intensive processing assistance for the experts, it can even help them improve their performance. So, a lot of us are familiar with the notion of the driverless car, made most famous by Google's recent driverless car that's driven now 500,000 miles, had one accident. The one accident it had was when it stopped legally at a red light and was hit from behind by a driver-operated car. Aside from that, it's had a perfect record. Well, this is the kind of technology that underlies the driverless car also. Now, a lot of us also have heard of the concept of the ZipCar. The idea being that if you want to rent the use of a car, you no longer have to do it by the day or the week. You can rent a car for an hour or even just a few minutes at a time. Of course, one of the things that this means that we're likely to see in the near future, certainly within the next decade, is the driverless ZipCar. Why go get the ZipCar? Pull out your mobile device, call the ZipCar to come pick you up. And we already have 4 states where driverless vehicles are legal currently. By the way, up until the late 1970s, there was a law on the books in the state of New York that said anybody, city of New York, anybody operating an automobile within the city of New York had to be preceded by a flagman walking in front of it, waving a red flag, so that people could be warned that this dangerous contraption was coming down the road. That law did not come off the books until the 1970s. Okay, law doesn't always keep up with technology, but I think that we will very likely see a significant number of states that will have approved fully driverless vehicles operating, especially since, quite frankly, they're an awful lot safer than the driver-operated ones, even when the drivers are stone cold sober and haven't spent too much time with the internet-connected smart wine shelf. So Velocity is helping to bring this kind of technology into commercial applications. Just one more exciting Atlanta company. Now, where is all of this headed? Well, a variety of things. Global autonomous supply chains, where intelligent systems will monitor our supply chains and manage the flow of parts and materials, products and services, information and funds across global borders with minimal or no human intervention required in the process, taking huge amounts of cost out of it. An article last fall in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution pointed out that we're going to begin to see much more dynamic pricing, not just for financial instruments like stocks and bonds, not just for travel like airplane tickets and hotel room reservations, but all kinds of products and services where prices will no longer be changing annually or quarterly, but will be changing every week, every day, every hour. Business ecosystems are emerging where we're beginning to understand the many levels, functions, processes, applications, roles, rules, and relationships among people in a subset of the economy and organizations in a subset of the economy. How do they interact with one another? And how can we improve and enhance and take cost out of those relationships to deliver the end products and services to the consumers of those products and services, whether they are individuals or organizations? There's already work underway in this area that's been done both in the coffee industry in Australia, where they're looking at what retailers and distributors, roasters, importers, growers, suppliers, transporters, and other service providers, how they can interact with one another to take cost out of the coffee system. That's also being done with fresh produce and with, has started to be done in the United States. These self-configuring business ecosystems will be driven by intelligent agent technologies that will enable them to be able to find, continually monitor through a platform that you can think of as a combination of Amazon.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Match.com, that will enable them to find the providers of products and services that they need anywhere up and down the supply chain, or make available to sell to potential partners the capabilities and capacities that they have to offer, and continuously redefine those to take cost out of the process. Switching providers instead of once a year or once a quarter, every day if necessary, because there's lower cost alternative available that's more profitable and does a better job of serving the end needs of the market at a lower cost. Now, how might we pull this all together? Well, let's think about a family 10 years from now. John and Mary. John's a consultant that works out of an office in their home. Mary has an office that she goes to on a daily basis across town. They have 3 kids, 2 teenagers of driving age and 1 in middle school. In today's environment, this family would probably have at least 3 cars, maybe 4. In the future, they may not own any. On a particular busy day, they may decide, rather than take each individual trip on a case-by-case basis, we'll reduce our per-hour costs by reserving a car for the whole day. We can leave things in the car if we want, and we'll schedule the autonomous car to arrive at the house in time to take Mary to work, come back to the house in time to pick up the kids, take the kids to school, come back to the house again in time to pick up John, let him run a couple of errands, bring him back to the house from where the car then leaves to pick up Mary at work to take her to a lunch meeting. Returns her from the lunch meeting. While she's at the lunch meeting for an hour and a half and there's some downtime, the car realizes it's time to get serviced, so it takes itself into the mechanic shop and has a mechanic who, using augmented reality technology, is able to service it more accurately and quickly as a result, so they can return in time to pick up Mary, take her back to the office, go get the kids from school, bring them home, go get Mary, bring her back home, and everybody has dinner together. One of the questions you might ask is, well, that's a very interesting scenario. Who owns the car? Is it the manufacturer? Is it a local dealer? Is it a car rental company, whether it's ZipCar or Hertz or what have you? All of those are possibilities, but there's another you might not have thought about. And that other is, nobody owns the car. The car owns itself. How does that happen? Well, obviously, somehow a decision has to be made to invest in purchasing the car, but it may be a Kickstarter type of funding where the initial investors are guaranteed a given return within the first year, and once the profits generated by the car are enough to pay off the initial investors, the car itself operates as a distributed, autonomous corporation. And it is able to function in the interest of serving its market and continuing to operate effectively. Those who have developed the concept of distributed autonomous corporations say that in addition to being, of course, distributed and autonomous, that they will be transparent, leveraging technologies like the blockchain to make the information available. What are the rules that they work by? Confidential, that they will be able to operate as trustworthy, fiduciary, self-regulating, incorruptible, and sovereign. Now, is this going to happen? Are we going to see widespread emergence of distributed autonomous corporations? That's very difficult to say, but I must say, as a futurist, it's very hard for me to look at the underlying enabling technologies here and say, no, that can't happen. And one of the things that, if nothing else, the past 20 or 30 years have taught us is that almost anything technologically enabled that can happen will happen if it's economically viable. So, 2025, just a little over a decade off, and we will be a quarter of the way through the 21st century already. And yet the kids who are going to be graduating from high school that year are already in first grade. And they will grow up having never known a world in which they couldn't immediately have a 360-degree view of all of their interactions with all of their customers, regardless of how many websites and platforms they use. They will have never heard of a situation in which they can't readily make not only payments via digital currencies, but also a series of other digital transactions that can be completely securely verified. They'll be used to the idea of augmented reality as a tool to help them bridge the gap between the digital world and the physical world. They'll take advantage of information coming from our very infrastructures to help us navigate our way through crowded urban areas. They'll take full advantage of contactless patient monitoring and related technologies to keep them at the peak of health for their entire lives. And all of this will be done with advanced, trust-free security capabilities and intelligent agents that can aid us and guide us through optimizing the value for us as individuals and organizations to achieve whatever our goals are. You think you've seen a lot of change in the last decade or two? You ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you for listening.